There we go. If I get everybody's attention, please, we will be getting started with the event shortly. Okay. All right, welcome everybody, welcome and good afternoon. My name is Christian Salinas, and I'm the Dean's Ambassador for the UC Riverside School of Public Policy, and I will be serving as your MC for today. We're delighted to have you all join us on this very, very special event on navigating political campaigns, policy work, and government affairs. This event is hosted by the UCR School of Public Policy and its Dean's Ambassadors. We also want to take this time to extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Civil Rights Institute of Inland Southern California for allowing us to use such an incredible space and for even allowing our guests to explore the exhibit that they're offering in this season of building our region's Korean communities exhibit. I hope that you guys have gotten the opportunity to explore the exhibit for yourselves, as it's very, 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 very nice and beautiful in there. So yeah, at this point, in case you guys missed the announcement from earlier, I do also want to stress this point that if you did happen to have parked in the back of the building, please make sure that, or please know that your car will be getting towed, so please try to find parking, whether it's alongside the street or at a designated parking sector, whether it's at a parking garage nearby. I don't want anybody getting their cars towed today, so if you guys could do that, that would be super great. But yeah, in any case, let's now move on with the program. It is my honor to introduce you guys today to our very special guest of the afternoon, Tiffany Tran. Tiffany comes from an extensive background of local, state, and federal politics. Currently, she serves as a government relations manager for Southern California Edison, also known as SCE, covering cities in both Orange and Los Angeles County. She works closely with key stakeholders in the region to advance SCE's strategic initiatives, as well as advancing clean energy goals. Before she joined the SCE, Tiffany was the senior legislative manager for the National LGBTQ Task Force in Washington, D.C. While she was at that role, she led strategic initiatives to advance LGBTQ and racial justice in collaboration with various members of Congress. Her prior experience also includes positions as the Inland Empire Political Director for the Mike Bloomberg presidential campaign and as a campaign manager for then-Riverside Assemblymember Jose Medina. Additionally, Tiffany also served as a senior field representative for Assemblymember Medina as well. And last but not least, she holds a Master's of Public Policy and a Bachelor of Arts degree from none other than your University of California, Riverside. Please join me in welcoming our special guest to the stage.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? We're going to work on that. We're going to work on that. But as just mentioned, my name is Tiffany Tran, and I'm very, very excited to be back here. You know, I'm a proud alumna of the program, spent 6 years doing my undergrad and my master's here, and it's taken me, you know, from Orange County all the way to Washington, D.C., but I always am eager to come back home. So I am back home now with Southern California Edison, but I see some familiar faces as well as new ones. A special shout out to Professor Ronald Loveridge, because there is a lot in my presentation that is just shows the gratitude of his impact and what I've achieved along the way. So really glad that you can make it. So today, as I mentioned, I forget that I have a clicker. As I mentioned a little bit, a start of my journey to where I am now. I started at the UC-DC Center, right? I always tell this story about when I applied for college. When I had no idea yet what I wanted to do, I actually thought I might want to do communications and public relations. UCR doesn't have a major of communications, and I believe that still is not the case. But it worked out in my favor because I basically asked around and I said, what major has the least amount of science, the least amount of math? And someone told me political science, and I said, I don't know what that is, but sure, I'll apply and I'll take on that major for my undergrad. So as I was sharing with the students during coffee today, it was actually, I don't know if I should admit this, but the first year to year 3, no idea what I wanted to do yet. I was still figuring it out. I still needed the time. So any students who need that kind of reassurance that you still have some time, please do not panic too much. In my 3rd year of undergrad, I applied for the UC-DC program in the spring. Loved it so much. I had an amazing time. And after, when I came back, I thought I was going to spend my summer in Riverside County, but alas, I was a Loveridge Fellow as part of his fellowship program, and that's how I got started with Assemblymember Jose Medina. So I started in his Capitol office, where I learned pretty much how a bill is drafted, how it becomes law. And I was fortunate in the sense where it was a very hands-on fellowship program. I was down there on the assembly floor, seeing how bills get passed out of both the Senate and the Assembly. And it was pretty much in the moments of when I was on the floor at the end of session, I saw a bill of ours get voted, and it was going to go to the Senate and then to the governor's desk, that I was like, okay, I think this is what I want to do. So it was actually in that moment, after my third year, I said, I'm going to come back home, I'm going to apply for grad school, get a master's of public policy. And one of the programs I applied for was our Master's of Public Policy, School of Public Policy here at UC Riverside. So I will mention, before UCDC, one of the internship programs I did for my undergraduate program was Ronald Loveridge's internship program. I was actually placed in Supervisor Kevin Jeffrey's office. So that's where I kind of got my whole feel for what local county politics really looked like. And funny enough, my former boss, Assemblymember Medina, he now holds that seat currently. So just had lunch with him. He's doing well, and always very eager to serve this county and this district. So very excited to see that he's still here. My Master's of Public Policy program, I had a focus of poverty and inequality, and having that experience of both federal and state kind of gave me a feel for what I wanted to do. A part of my internship program with Dr. Loveridge, he said, I know DC sounds great, gold and glorified, but just think about how much impact you can make on the local level, right? I was young, I was naive, I was like, no, I still want to do DC, I still want to get, that experience, that credential, but it was completely true. My time in the Assembly was really the turning point of where I was going to go for my career for the rest of my life. So, to start, as I mentioned, started as a fellow, came back, was offered a position as a field representative, made my way up to senior field representative, but in between, Jose was running a re-election campaign for his state assembly. So he asked me to join as his campaign manager, and I said yes. Like, once again, not knowing what I was getting myself into. It seems like a theme here, saying yes to the uncertainty. And I was actually a campaign manager of one. I had no one else on my team. Every help that I had to get was based off volunteers. So you could imagine probably how hard that could be, but I truly do believe that when you speak to the message of your candidate, or you speak to the values and the goals that they want to accomplish, it does resonate with voters, it does resonate with residents. So, in my role as senior field representative, I served as the key liaison between the Assemblymember's office, constituents, local orgs, and community stakeholders. So a few wins that we had in his office that I think is very, important to note. AB 101. Making California the first state to mandate ethnic studies as a high school graduation requirement. I want to say it took about 3 to 4 tries for us to get it over to the governor's desk. So that's just how it works sometimes, but when you don't give up and you look at the political environment, you look at the window of opportunity, things can be accomplished. He secured $25 million in ongoing funds to UC Riverside School of Medicine. So obviously, home is where the heart is. He has a really big passion for helping programs here at UCR, which I share as well. So like I said, any opportunity to come back home, I'm happy to be here. He secured $9.7 million to support the development of Cheech Marin Center for Chicano Art right down the street, $3.5 million for the development of Mission Heritage Plaza, and then $7 million to support restoration and preservation of the Harada House. I just note this to all really highlight just the impact that we can have here at home, right? And I say, when you have the drive and you have the connections and you have, your heart is in it, I think you can do a lot of good for the communities that you serve. On the campaign trail, I don't love the campaign trail. I am just going to be honest about that. I'm very happy that with state campaign and federal path, I have gotten to a place in my career where I can decide what I like, be selective about what I want to do, and then be able to work with others to make that happen. But the campaign trail has taught me a lot. You need the grit, you need the determination, and I am so impressed by folks who have the boots on the ground to make, the campaign, to help the campaign succeed. So I was campaign manager for Jose in 2018. As mentioned, I was a campaign manager of one. So you can all imagine what that looked like. But in the end, we won about 67.8% of the votes. I'm not going to pretend it was all due to my hard work. We were hoping it was going to be an easy campaign. Although we never take anything for granted, you have to constantly be out there knocking on doors, ensuring that his social media is activated, ensuring that he has FaceTime on panels and campaign events. But still, you work as if you don't know what the outcome, the results are going to be, because you don't. And so in 2020, I was hired as the Inland Empire political director. A little story about that was I was in I was in New York with a few of my friends on a personal trip. It was only a 4-day trip. I flew into New York, not having known anything having heard about this job, and I left New York having been hired for this campaign. So that goes to show how quickly they move as well. I got a call one day from their national team, asking if I wanted to join. So that was my first go around with a national campaign. I asked myself, what do I know about running, a national campaign? But I said, like many things, just go for it. You'll learn, thrown to the wolves, and you'll do the best you can. So I was hired on as one of 6 California political directors. What that means is the way our campaign was run in the state of California, from all the way Northern California, Southern California, we broke up the state into 6 different regions. Each region had a political director where their sole role was to get endorsements for the campaign. As many of you all know, Mike Bloomberg, billionaire, we did not have to worry too much about fundraising. We did not have to talk too much FaceTime with donors, which is an aspect that is unique to maybe some campaigns. Our sole role was leveraging the pre-existing relationships that we have in the county, in the region, to turn that into endorsements for the campaign to gain momentum. So that's what I was hired on for. Basically, they looked at my experience from not only working for Assemblymember Jose Medina in the Assembly, but my role as campaign manager, leveraging those relationships and turning them, like I said, into momentum for the campaign. So my job was to ensure that Mike's message reached key constituency. That means that any policy initiatives he put forward, we had an event to relay that to our voters. A lot of the endorsements that I had to garner throughout the Inland Empire, we made sure they were the face of our campaign here in the IE. So I led Mike's political strategy and operations across the Inland Empire, like I mentioned, turning relationships with local, county, and statewide political stakeholders into endorsements. I will say when it comes to the campaign trail, I included a few slides of do's and don'ts because that's what I'm hearing to be beneficial for people who are here. Something I mentioned to the students earlier is I can talk and talk and talk, but really what's going to be fruitful to this conversation is me hearing from you all of what you're wanting to learn. And so I've been told campaign is really the highlight here. Some of them may sound cliche, but some of them are just really good reminders to what it takes to build a rigorous, successful campaign. You start early, you build a strong team. I was unique in the sense of I was a team of one. So the team that I had to focus on was building a team of volunteers. Not only folks who were ready to help, but folks who were ready to help consistently. Early planning is everything. You assemble a team with clear roles. So campaign manager, communications lead, field director, and fundraising coordinator. Given that Mike's campaign on the national level, we were not too scarce in resources, I had about two regional field organizers, a team of 20 field organizers who really did the hard work on the ground, right? They did the canvassing, they did the door knocking, they did, the event logistics while I was out in the IE getting endorsements. You have to know your political landscape. So research voter demographics, local issues, and historical voting patterns. Tailor your message to what voters care about, not just what the candidate wants to say. I am a big believer that you have a script, be ready, but you don't use a script to talk to every single person. I think the way I look at human interactions is that it's just that, it's human to human, right? I think a lot of what we sometimes forget in the chaos of everything is that you stick to a script, you skip to one line, but I think what people want to feel, especially voters and residents, is connected. They want to feel connected to you. So you speak to the message, you speak to the real life issues they're experiencing in their daily lives, and then you define a clear, relatable message. Your campaign needs a compelling narrative, whether it's change, experience, community first. The message should be simple, repeatable, and emotionally resonant. Outreach and engagement. When I was campaign manager, TikTok was not around. I'm not gonna tell you how old I am, but I'm gonna say that. And then another mention, I will not mention how old I am, but right there, my classmate next to me, he's the father of a daughter who's in this program. So if that tells you the timeline that we're talking about, that is all I'm going to say. But TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, maybe not so much Twitter, but TikTok Reels is really what's captivating folks nowadays, right? That's really the platform that I get my marketing tools from, whether that's restaurants I want to try, candidates running for races, any PSAs from companies, marketing pieces. They use TikTok. They use TikTok and they use Instagram. So I feel weird to be standing in this position and saying TikTok so many times, but the data behind it and the outreach that it has is just phenomenal. So that's part one. Part two is the engagement that comes with it. You respond to comments, you host live Q&As, and you share behind the scene moments. For any of those who follow politics in DC, there's a handful of very popular or notorious congressional members who use TikToks, live Q&As to have their voters feel like they are speaking to them directly, because that's what the voters want. I've been on both sides of the table as a voter, as a staffer, and what I hear a lot is that people say sometimes politicians don't know what voters are going through, they don't understand, and a big part of voters feeling heard and understood is feeling like they have that FaceTime. And now with TikTok and the social media as it is, to be able to maximize it makes such a big difference. Despite all the talk of TikTok, in my opinion, field organizing still wins elections. You still need that human-to-human connection. You still need that person-to-person interaction. So door knocking, phone banking, community events, they create real voter connections. Volunteers are your campaign's heartbeat. Train them well and treat them like gold. I put that because I am so grateful for the volunteers who really assisted me with Assemblymember Medina's re-election campaign. I was overwhelmed when I first started. I didn't know what the next steps were, where to go, and it was really the volunteers that came on a weekly basis to assist with the campaign that I felt like we are doing real good work for real good change. Get out the vote, GOTV is what we call it. So the final stretch is all about mobilization. You have a clear plan for early voting, absentee ballots, and election day logistics. Bonus tips: local matters more than you think. Whether you're working in DC or whether you're working for a congressional member, even in presidential campaigns, local surrogates and community leaders can sway undecided voters. You build coalitions early. So when I was told in my undergrad that you can do a lot more work on the local level, that can mean various things, right? It doesn't just mean you need to be working on races on the local level, but it means that you need to be reaching out to community members and stakeholders on the local level to be that surrogate and that messenger. Authenticity wins. As I mentioned before, voters can smell a script. You encourage candidates to speak from the heart, especially in town halls and interviews. I'm a big believer that, while there is that aspect of fake it till you make it, as I often do, I do believe, I never want to underestimate people's intelligence and people's eye to know when someone's speaking from the heart or speaking to whatever they rehearsed 100 times last month. Cliche but debrief after every major event. I think with a campaign, what I learned most about the campaign trail is things are changing on a daily, on a weekly basis, right? You have to pivot to gear towards what's happening currently, and you need to pull back and readjust if things don't go well. My time in DC. So actually, when I was first hired for the National LGBTQ Task Force, I actually spent the first year with the org working from home. So it was during COVID. I worked remote from California for about a year before moving to DC, and I was there for about 2 years. So as the senior legislative manager, I led the organization's federal and state legislative advocacy efforts, advancing policies that protect and promote the rights of LGBTQ communities. I created our organization's agenda, legislative agenda. I was the only person in our org to do that. We were a pretty small nonprofit. We spanned from New York, DC, and Miami. Our policy team was in DC, but given that we are such a small organization, each person kind of handled one avenue themselves. So I was the main person who built our agenda for our executive director to put forth in Congress. I was the only person who lobbied with members on the Hill from across the aisle to try to move along bills that we prioritize. And then I was the only member to, I lobbied for the Respect for Marriage Act, which it passed in 2022, signed by President Biden, and I was invited to the House gallery to view passage of the bill, and I attended the bill signing at the White House. This role here gave me insight to DC and what was happening. And people always ask me, like, do you prefer DC or do you prefer California? And the way I describe DC, I love DC so much, but it's interesting because I say, you feel like so much is happening and nothing is happening. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but I feel like things are go, 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 100 miles per hour. But because the Congress is so much bigger, obviously, than our state, the size of our state body, our state political body, so much work goes into getting members to sign on to your bill, to support for that to follow the legislative process. Really enjoyed it, and then when I was in DC, loved it so much, but knew that at some point I was going to come back to California. So I actually just moved back this past September. I'm so shocked that it's coming close to a year. And I am now, very happy with what I do. I continue to be happy with my role, but what I do now is I am the government relations manager for Southern California Edison. So who here has heard of Southern California Edison? If you don't, it's a problem. Unless you live in Riverside, we don't service Riverside, which is here obviously, because you all are a muni. But what we do in Southern California Edison, we serve 50,000 square miles, 15 million people in our coastal and Southern California, and we service more than 180 incorporated cities and 15 counties. So it's not just about keeping the lights on. We strive to safely deliver reliable, clean, and affordable electricity to the communities that we serve. We're spearheading change in the power industry, emphasizing clean energy, efficient electrification, future grids, and customer choice to enhance our business. I will share a little bit an interview question I got when I had applied for Edison. Going from not only DC, but back to California, I was moving from the nonprofit world to a utility corporate company, right? And when I made it to the last round of interviews, I got the question, you worked for a nonprofit, social justice nonprofit. Why do you want to now work for utility? At first, it might seem difficult to answer, but pretty much what I said is, I want to go somewhere next where it's people-centered, right? I'm an ally of the LGBTQ community. I really believe in the work, and that is why I applied. That's why I worked for the organization. And to be able to work for Edison, it's all about keeping our communities safe, right? Our number one value and priorities is safety. So any company, any organization that is people-centered, that puts the safety of our residents and customers first, that is something that I want to be a part of. And that is why I was part of the campaign trail. That is why I worked for Assemblymember Medina in the state assembly. Everything is rooted back from how it impacts people at the end of the day. So a little bit about what I do. I am now in the city of Orange, so anytime I get to come back home to Riverside, I'm very excited to do so. I am part of our Orange County team, but I just recently got some LA County cities added to my territory. So you could find me in Diamond Bar and Walnut at city council meetings some of these days and weeks. But essentially what I do is I support and implement engagement plans that result in favorable policy and infrastructure project outcomes in Orange County to help safely deliver reliable, clean, and affordable electricity. So what I do is I lead our strategic relationships with the cities that I manage and cover to ensure that any Edison initiatives our stakeholders are aware about. If we can get their support, we will. And what that looks like is some issue areas that I cover is called PSPS. That's our Public Safety Power Shutoff. It's just a very fancy word when we have to, I'm so sorry, turn off your power. But we do so as a tool of last resort. We only use PSPS when there is what we call a threshold that shows us we need to de-energize to prevent wildfires from starting, right? We don't want our transmission, our distribution lines creating a spark due to high winds, low vegetation. When it's really dry, it's a recipe for disaster, and that's what we have to do for what's called a period of concern, so a period of time. And then a big thing here in California is reaching net zero 2045. It is our plan that we are going carbon-free emissions by 2045. It is a plan that is supported by the governor, and that is what we're working towards. Essentially, making the bridge here this is now my role, my opportunity to bridge corporate priorities with public policy goals. Our work will help power our planet, reduce carbon emissions, and create cleaner air for everyone. Accelerating clean energy initiatives to achieve California's climate change and air quality goals, which is, as I mentioned, 100% carbon-free electricity by 2045, increased energy storage, and expanded transportation and building electrification. All about modernizing the grid to ensure safety, grid resiliency, and system readiness. Mitigating climate change related risks, including wildfires, and achieving operational and service excellence. I don't take lightly, and Edison does not take lightly, really the power and the influence that we have to ensure that you not only have your lights on, but you do so in a safe manner, right? We understand this goes back to how these policy changes really impact real people and real lives. And so we want to ensure that there's operational excellence where we can maintain the quality of life for residents here in Southern California. So there is a book that I read in grad school here of Masters of Public Policy. I'm so glad no other professor is here because I forget which professors the class was in, but the book has stayed with me throughout my whole career. Essentially what the book is, so the book is called Power in Movement, and essentially what it's all about is that if you want to make legislative impact and create change, there are 4 aspects that you need to keep in mind for that to come into fruition. This book is it encompasses the foundational work in political science and sociology that explores how social movements arise, operate, and achieve influence. The focus is on political opportunity structure. That's what we call it. We call it POS, political opportunity structure. The idea that the political environment provides openings or constraints that affect a movement's chance of success. So the first of the POS, which is success isn't just about passion or organization. It depends on political context. The second is social movements as collective action. Movements are not isolated. They're organized and strategic. But the cycles of contention pretty much indicate that social movements emerge in waves rather than being cyclical, rather than being continuous due to groups mobilizing around issues during what's called periods of opportunity. The last one is framing and mobilization. Movements must frame their issues effectively to attract support. So it was a big topic in grad school was like, how do we create change? How do we have lasting impact in the work that we do? And this is a book that stuck with me for a very long time because I have used it in my work in national politics, federal politics, in local politics, and also even here as the government relations manager for Southern California Edison. This is my last slide, so I have no idea what the timing looks like.
6:06.
Oh, got it. There is a quote from Thomas Jefferson that I love and use as the focal point of what I do. I'm a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more I have of it. I'm extremely appreciative that, I didn't get here on my own and by myself, right? Along the way, I've had professors who took a chance on me and wrote that letter of recommendation, or, a company that gave me, a company, organization, or a campaign that gave me the role for the first time, but then it was incumbent on me to say yes. I was scared when Mike Bloomberg's campaign approached me. I had no idea what that was going to look like and how I was going to do. When Jose asked me to be campaign manager, I think I looked at him and I was like, we can find someone for you, I promise. And he was like, no, I want you to do it. I said yes, and it worked out. And that is just all to say, I think if you have the fear of doing something, I think you're probably in the right place, is what I will say. The second one is relationships matter. I hate to keep pointing at Dr. Loveridge, but he is the one who told me this. It's not just about who knows you, but who trusts you. That is something else I've taken with me through everything that I do. With this career, as long as I've had it, you meet tons of people every day, tons of new faces. But I think when it goes back to that human-to-human connection and interaction, you build that trust that you have with people you meet, right? That lasting impact to really provide that, to really build that collective effort and action to create change. It's not just about being present, but it's about someone who follows through on their word. And I'm pretty certain I got the call from Mike Bloomberg's campaign because I have followed up in my relationships in the past. I have been someone that they deemed dependable. So when I got that call out of the blue, it was a huge opportunity and I took it. Policy change takes persistence and passion. I will admit what I have under this as the first one can be a little controversial. Some people can agree, disagree. For me, it was really important for me to work for an elected whose values I aligned with, simply because I know myself, and if I didn't, I was going to burn out. I wanted to believe in it's not about what side your political party you're on. It's not about, which candidate is most popular. I knew that if I worked for someone whose values I aligned with or whose platform I really believed in, that is what was going to keep me in the game, right? Fight for a cause you believe in while learning to navigate both sides. When I was applying for new jobs, when I was applying for jobs after the National LGBTQ Task Force, I was getting tons of questions of, oh, you work for a progressive organization? Are you someone who can speak to members across the aisle? Or, would you be accepting of diverse perspectives? I always said this. Because of the way our legislative process worked, I actually had to speak to members across the aisle more often than I spoke to our allies to get a bill across. To get a bill voted out of the House, to get a bill voted out of the Senate, I had to make sure that I worked with everybody because you needed a majority of votes to get that passed out. So it gives you an understanding and a skill set that even in our industry, even in politics, it's about the ability to work with folks around you. I will end with stay curious and stay human. That is just who I am. Policy and legislation are often seen as abstract, but at their core, they affect real people's lives. I say empathy is a superpower. A lot of times when people are frustrated, they just want to feel heard and feel connected to. So if you are someone who wants to be a political strategist, where's Liam? I see Liam somewhere. Political strategist, a consultant, an analyst, study the human consequences of policies. Listen to diverse voices and let that inform your approach. Q&A. The end. What time is it?
6:11.
6:11. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can just stay right there. Yeah, it's cool. Okay. All right, well, thank you so much, Tiffany, for such an insightful and incredible presentation. We will now be moving forward with our Q&A section of the afternoon. If you do happen to have a question for Tiffany, please make sure to raise your hand, and our fellow Dean Ambassador Munaza Khalid will run the mic to you. Upon receiving the microphone, please make sure to speak into the mic clearly and loudly so that the whole audience can hear you. And yeah, let's get into our first questions. If you have a question, there you go. Thanks, Tiffany.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Throughout your experience, if there was one trait that was the most important, or one that kept coming up throughout the most challenging times, what would that trait be?
Repeat your question one more time. Speak to the microphone.
So if there was one trait that you would say was the most important that you kept coming back to throughout all of your experiences, what would that trait be?
Definitely, I mean, empathy is one as mentioned, but really consistency and responsiveness. What I have found as a senior field rep for Assemblymember Medina, or a campaign manager, or a senior legislative manager, even now as a government relations manager, I get told all the time that people don't expect me to have the right answer, they just expect me to respond. I mean, they thank me for responding, right? They say, we just want to hear from somebody who represents either the elected official I work for, the company I work for, because our customers are dealing with frustrations. So what I do, a little thing that goes a very long way, is if I get an email, if I get a phone call, and I don't know the answer to the question, I will just respond back saying, thank you for your email, I'm working on this, and we'll get back to you to follow up, right? I think people get really frustrated when they feel like their voices or their questions just getting lost into thin air. So if you can have a mechanism of just being consistently present and responsive, it actually really does go a long way. I know it's cliche, but the flip side of that is if you don't, you're gonna get a lot of angry customers, you're gonna get a lot of angry stakeholders, and I think part of the job is ensuring that you're present and that you respond.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alex. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was wonderful. One question that I have is, what was the most unexpected or challenging part from shifting from working in like a nonprofit to instead working in like a regional, working with Edison in the regional area?
Oh, that is a great question, because I thought about that question every day as I was making the transition. It's a different, I mean, there's multiple factors to it, right? It's a different world in the sense of I'm not working in national federal politics, I'm now back to state politics working for Edison, but also the culture is really different. In nonprofit, we were such a small nonprofit, but we were also a C4, meaning like we were partly dependent on donors and fundraising, and you feel like you need to continually market yourself or talk about why you believe in the work that you do to just keep even the existence of your nonprofit going, right? And so one aspect of switching over to corporate, Edison, we have 14,000 employees. It's huge. I think, someone asked me, oh, do you know so-and-so at Edison? And I'm like, I'll meet them soon enough. But the shift of that is, the pace is different for me. I'm not going to pretend to say this is what happens when you switch from nonprofit to corporate, but the pace for me was different. I think I had to be told constantly from my supervisor, like it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So take your time. And the great thing is that with Edison being corporate, we have a lot more resources than I did in the nonprofit. On the nonprofit realm, I was trained and conditioned to find the answer to every question myself and to be the sole point of contact for everyone's needs, anything task force related. But at Edison, we have the experts who can speak to our base charge prices. We have our experts who can speak to solar panels. We have our experts who can talk about our PSPS system. So I've had to remind myself I can ask for help at Edison and not to be afraid about that, because that's what we have my colleagues there for. So some of it's a culture shift, some of it's a mind shift, and some of it's just a shift in the how fast-paced it can be as well. I'm hoping that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you, of course. Love bridge.
Kudos to the lessons today, but I can close my eyes and still hear you giving a talk with my group, the corner of Market and 14th. You were articulate, you were confident, you framed important policy choices that for us to consider. When we ask the question, which is so obvious, have you thought about not simply being a staffing person, but actually running programs? And why or why not?
Dr. Leverage, I always appreciate when he brings it back to that, because I will tell you, that time when I led our Riverside County to Martin Lynn Empire team, and the office that I opened here in Riverside during his campaign was actually the first office our campaign opened in California. So when I was hired on, they said, you're hired, but in 2 weeks, Mike is coming to Riverside. You need a team of 20 staffers, you need an office, you need to ensure that stakeholders are invited. And I was like, okay. And I love when Dr. Leverage reminds me of that, because I'm gonna be honest, I blacked out when I was speaking, and I was like, let's tunnel vision, let's make it happen. My heart was in it, but I was so nervous that I look back and I say, what exactly happens? We ask me all the time, do I want to run for office? When I first started my career in politics, one thing, as I mentioned, was I thought I wanted to work in DC, but I do so much more of the local impact here. This is what I want to do. The second thing people ask me is, do I want to run? I don't anymore. I used to back then, but I'm still a person at the end of the day who sees how intense politics can get. And the older I get, the more I want to protect. It's a cliche thing where you say protect your peace, but I want to protect my personal life a little bit and still in the capacity to do good, right? That's why I went to DC, that's why I got my job here. But it's not a definite no, because I do believe that when you do have a platform to influence and use it for good, you can make such enormous change, and Dr. Leverage is clearly, an example of that. So no right now, but I'm sure he'll ask me again in a year or two. Any other questions? Hey, Ruben.
Hello, how you doing again?
Good to see you.
Likewise. I liked your presentation specifically about being people-centered. What some qualities that you feel, besides that you showed in the Edison interview, that you were passionate and that you wanted to work for people, but what do you believe that were other qualities that the interviewer at Edison said, I'm gonna hire this person, besides that you show great passion and I'm assuming anonymously, but in it.
That's a good question. So I will admit here, I am brand new to the utility industry. I was hired with them knowing that, I was honest with, would be my first experience with the utility industry, but I did take it back but I want to work for a company that's people-centered, which is why I'm so passionate about working for Edison, but also obviously marketing, what I bring to the table, like pre-existing relationships that I've had throughout Orange County and Riverside County to bring value back to the company. I'm not going to pretend it's all unicorn and rainbows, and I'm just like, if you believe in yourself, that's enough. That's part of it. But what I will say is, I was honest and transparent about how this was my first experience with the utility industry. However, the passion lies bringing it back to having it be people-centered, right? Ensuring that Edison is safely delivering affordable, reliable electricity, and knowing the impact and how that directly impacts the lives of real people. So beyond saying it's people-centered, I said, I want to work for a company that I see myself there for a really long time. So you present yourself as ensuring that you're selective in where you want to go, because you want to pick them as much as they pick you. So that's what I say. That's the position that you want to put yourself in. And then essentially, I do believe being a team player is just as important as working hard, right? I think being able to work with others, being someone that you can depend, being someone that can be dependent on, and someone who follows through on their word, these are things that people will notice from the get-go. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see you again.
We ran into, I was getting worked on at Molino's earlier, and he turned around and he said, "Excuse me, are you Tiffany?" And I said, "Who do I owe debt to?" And when he said he's here because he's doing campaign, I said, I went back to my PowerPoint and I added more campaign stuff, just so you're aware. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess the question is more geared towards campaigning. With the campaigning member Medina, what was one of your biggest challenges and how did you overcome it? And then more in general, what's the key tool that you feel that was more effective in general for getting your candidate's message out and garnering support?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the challenges that I face with Assemblymember Medina's campaign, or really just being on a campaign trail, I won't personalize it to the campaign, but being on a campaign trail is that since I always take it back to you're meeting real people who've experienced real issues in their lives, I've met with a lot of politicians don't care what we think. Politicians never answer the phone. They're out of touch. They don't know what the struggles that we face. I don't pretend to say, no, you're completely wrong. What I say is, I understand why you feel that way. And you bring it back to the values of the campaign that he was running for. He was chair of higher education when he was in the assembly. As I mentioned with the AB 101, he was very passionate about not only higher education, but of course, K-12 curriculum, where that bill was about making ethnic studies a requirement, for a mandate for high school requirement. So a challenge that I came across is people don't believe in their elected official, or they don't believe in the work of the elected official, or that they care. And that is okay. I would say, I don't know if this is right to say, I would say at first that is okay, but part of being responsive and being consistent is that you continually show up to the residents and the voters and you continue to bring this message to the forefront. By the time the campaign ends or the campaign's finished up and they vote, it is up to them if they feel that your message is authentic or the candidate's message is authentic, if it aligns with the candidate's a real person who understands what's happening on the ground. And like I said, they just want their voters to feel heard. Feeling heard is not about being told they're wrong. Feeling heard is just, or right, either or. Feeling heard is just consistently showing up and saying, I understand why you feel that way. Here's the messaging that I have for you, where if you're worried about, I'm just going to worried about social services, if you're worried about jobs, economic growth here, Assemblymember Medina will do A, B, C, and D, right? Make it a dialogue and a conversation, and people will feel that. You had a second part to your question.
The second part was essentially how do you get your candidate's message out and how do you garner that support? It kind of ties into what you just said.
Yeah, I pushed a lot for my candidate to be out in the district. Although I didn't have to do a lot of pushing because he loves being with people. I think that's something that one of the main things I can sing his choir about, his praise about, I should say. He loves being with people, and people saw that. He loved connecting with constituents before and after events. People feel that, right? And so FaceTime is big in ensuring the message is being relayed on the platform that he has. Again, I did not use TikTok back in the day, but I would imagine that's a big thing now for a lot of races and candidates. And I would even extend it to a little bit of, I would imagine a benefit of TikTok is reaching to the younger generation, right? Voter apathy is a huge thing. That goes back to one of the challenges I face. People don't believe that they need to be part of the change or that who they voted to office can be part of that change. But one thing to switch voter apathy is making them feel like what they're doing, who they're voting for, can lead to real change. That's how I got started, going from the Leverage Fellowship to deciding I want to do grad school. Again, I was on the floor of the assembly. I saw a bill get voted off the floor, and two-year bills, and I said, you can be part of real change. And I think innately, human nature, everyone a lot of people want to feel like they have a voice and an impact in what goes on in everyday lives. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
Someone else?
Hey Tiffany.
Hi, good to see you.
I came a little later, so maybe you touched on it in your presentation, but we're both there doing our MVP at PCR.
Yep.
We overlapped. I remember when you were applying for the program. So when you were already a professional, right, going into the program,
I was.
how do you feel that you changed right, the program and post and in terms of skills, analysis, and being a better servant and professional within your specific jobs, like taken over in the last few years?
Yes. So timeline. When I first applied, or when I first started the Master's in Public Policy program, I was working part-time for Assemblymember Medina in the district office. Part-time simply because scheduled classes, that's what could work. Once I joined the program, I worked full-time and I was a student full-time. So I was in a fortunate position where I had my full-time career when starting the program. I know a handful of my classmates, one of the things that were important to them is ensuring that they were part of a program that had resources, connections to help facilitate a job, once they're out. So on the professional side, I was already constantly growing that skill set. But secondly, a slide I have here was a book that I read in the master's program that really stuck by me for a very long time. And I am not one to remember a lot of the books that I read, just because in this industry, you're reading so much. I was constantly reading bills, I was constantly reading books from undergrad, high school even, into what I'm doing now, that you don't remember everything that you come by. But the master's program, we had professors who cared about what their students were reading. One thing I've noticed that they care about what they were teaching us is applicable to real life. I don't want to be sitting in a class where I just hear things and I never feel like I can take it outside the classroom. So to answer your question, it's like, yes, I was building that professional career already when I was joining the program. At the same time, the soft skill set that I was continuing to learn inside the classroom that I can take out is vital to everything that I'm doing.
To build up on the previous gentleman's question, does Edison display their political action committee of candidates they endorse? And has Edison, to gain personal knowledge, has Edison endorsed a particular candidate for the governor's race next year, or you're allowed to disclose that information, just so I can be an informed constituent of?
Yeah, of course. So I don't know the answer to the governor's race or things of that state level, given that I'm in my first year at Edison. But I will say that one of our roles as government relation managers, because we are the person of contact in the communities, we actually do get to, I don't want to say get to decide, but we get to consider and tell executives which campaigns we want to contribute to. And that just goes from part of being in the political sphere. And a great thing that I really love about Edison and admire about Edison is we're not only policy driven, but we want to be part of the political landscape, right? We have, it's 7 or 8 teams all throughout Southern California that have about 3 or 4 government relation managers on each team. And part of our role is working with people in the community leaders, people in races, decide where we can spend some of our money. And the good thing is the company does listen to us. They do value our input. They know that we hold great relationships. And of course, but as any corporate company goes, we need to justify it, right? We need to make sure that it aligns with our values and our pillars of work. And as long as we can fit that process, we do have that process that exists. Any other question? Time? No? Hey, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. I appreciate the School of Public Policy for giving me the opportunity to come back home. I don't always get to, so it does mean a lot that you guys took out the time to be here. And I said to the students, I was like, they probably know everything everything I present on, they'll probably already know themselves, but thank you for making the time.
Of course, of course. Okay, so unfortunately, yes, that is all the time that we have for questions for the afternoon. So we have now officially reached the conclusion of today's event. Thank you once again so much to our very special guest speaker, Tiffany Tran, for such an insightful and moving, incredible presentation. I really appreciated hearing all your words, even personally as well. So thank you. And we look forward to continuing to engage with you for many, many more years to come. Thank you. And thank you. And thank you to everyone in our audience as well for also serving as such a lovely audience today and making it such an awesome afternoon. And I also do want to say thank you to our fellow Deans Ambassadors of the UCR School of Public Policy for the planning, promotion, and execution of this event. I'll have you guys know that this seminar was led by MPP Ambassador Sybil Wu. She was leading the event. She did help out a lot today. Thank you so much for your hard work. Thank you. I gotta say, it was my honor to be a part of this planning committee alongside colleague Leon Burley, who's in the back right now. Thank you so much. And with support, of course, from our Chief Ambassador, Samuel Schroff, and of course, our Director of External Engagement, Mark Mandelin. Thank you guys so much for putting this event together. Thank you guys. Yeah. And also, we invite everyone, there's a lot more events like this that are coming up. We invite you guys to join us for our future events by none other than the UCR School of Public Policy. You can visit on the website spp.ucr.edu. We have a website that tells you all about the events as such that come on throughout the year that's coming. I'll have you guys know that for the 2025-2026 school year, it's actually a really, really big year for the school. We will be celebrating 10 years of Solutions for the Region, Solutions of the World. We'll be hosting a series of special Dean's Anniversary events focused on the theme of creating a thriving, prosperous, and abundant world. We hope that you will join us throughout this very, very important milestone for the school and our school's history, celebrating our big 10 years. And you can also, similarly to the same website, you can also learn more about what type of events that we're going to be getting going by simply going to spp10years.ucr.edu. I repeat, that's spp10years.ucr.edu. Please make sure to check it out. And additionally, we invite you to listen to our official podcast series, Policy Chats. This is actually a student-run podcast of the UCR School of Public Policy, and it is also celebrating its 5th year anniversary. There's like milestones going all around right now this year, and we look forward to sharing some upcoming interviews that are also going to be featured on this podcast with California Treasurer Fiona Ma, as well as Congressmember Jay Obernolte, and many, many others. And lastly, we hope that you'll join us in a big annual event that occurs at the University of California Riverside campus. It occurs every year. It's called the Persist Women's Political Engage Conference. It's taking place on Tuesday, November 4th. And for anybody that's interested, we do have flyers and more information about this event towards the backhand side of the room. We have flyers for many other different things as well. And so, yeah. We at the UCR School of Public Policy look forward to continuing to engage with you all and many more events to come. And of course, we welcome you to speak with our guest speaker, Tiffany. After the conclusion of this event, please feel free to come out here with more questions, even after the Q&A. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.